Stanza 1, line 1, because I could not stop for death. Dickinson immediately lets the reader know that the poem is going to be about death. The word because allows the reader to understand that the speaker is giving some sort of explanation to an argument or to a question. Stating that she could not stop for death means that the speaker had no choice when she was going to die. Dickinson capitalizes the D in death. She is trying to allow the reader to understand that death stands for possibly the Grim Reaper or an angel leading her to the afterlife. Line 2, he kindly stopped for me. This line establishes the tone that most of the poem follows, one of the calm acceptance about death. Line 3 through 4, the carriage held just ourselves and immortality. By making carriage a proper noun, she makes it more specific and more important. In other words, it's not just an old carriage, it's her death chariot. The words ourselves more than likely means the character and death. The emphasis she places on the word also strengthens the relationship between the speaker and death. Immortality is the most complicated and interesting word of these three, and certainly gets us thinking. This is the first hint we get that the speaker doesn't think of death as the end, but as a step on the way to eternal life. Stanza 2, line 5. We slowly drove, he knew no haste. He knew no haste is an old-fashioned way of saying death didn't speed or hurry. The shift we to he in the same line is an important one. The we might allow the reader to think the speaker has some control over the pace, but Dickinson quickly reminds us that he is the one determining the tone and the progress, and that the speaker is just along for the ride. While we've already determined that the speaker is not afraid of death, this slow pace creates a feeling of drawn-out suspense in the poem, keeps us wondering what might happen. Lines 6 through 8, and I put away my labor and my leisure too for his civility. Lines 6 through 7 means that she has given up work and free time as an acceptance of her death. Line 8 can be viewed a couple ways. First, we can read for as because of, so she gave up thinking about work and play because of death and politeness. Or we can view the for as in place of. Similar to the first interpretation, she has given up the worries and joys of life in exchange for his graciousness. Stanza 3, line 9 through 10. We passed a school where children strove at recess in the ring. Dickinson is painting a little scene here of what they are riding by. They see children playing in the schoolyard during recess. This scene seems almost eerily normal. Maybe this means the mixing of life and death makes the poem seem even stranger, or maybe it makes dying seem like just an ordinary part of life. Line 11 through 12, we pass the field of gazing grain, we pass the setting sun. When she describes the grain as gazing, maybe she thinks the thicker tops of the grain resembles heads as the grain strip stands still and just looks at the carriage as it passes. The sun and field are much more general descriptions of the scene, yet might even seem some symbolic significance. The setting sun, for example, signifies the end of the day, but might also stand for the end of the speaker's life. Also notice the repeating phrase, we passed. This could represent the slow progression of the carriage, so instead of feeling like this poem is at a standstill, we're aware that it's moving forward. Stanza 4, line 13, or rather, he passed us. Quite literally, the sun passes her because it has to set. But looking a little deeper into it, Dickinson suggests that maybe that's what death is like. The sun, light, and warmth leading you to the cold darkness that is death. Dickinson uses personification again when she refers to the sun as he. The fact that the phrase, or rather, is made after the stanza break only makes the poem spookier. The long pause between stanzas allows us to notice that the poem is about to make a sudden shift away from the sunny, ordinary day into something more dark. Lines 14 through 16. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer, my gown, my tippet, my tule. Gossamer is used here to describe her gown that is very thin and delicate material. Tippet is an old-fashioned shawl or shoulder cape and this one, and this one's made of tule, which is silky and thin. The dew of night is setting, and because the sun has gone down, she's now getting chilly because she isn't wearing enough clothing. There is a possibility that Dickinson wanted to reveal that she is underdressed for this journey to represent she might be underprepared. This stanza echoes what we discovered in the beginning line. This is not her choice, and she was not planning this trip with death. Stanza 5, line 17 through 18. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The we pause marks the second major stop in the poem. The first instance was the beginning of this journey when death stops to pick up the speaker, so we could assume that this second stop could end their journey for good. Using the word house to indicate the place of burial is a clever move by Dickinson. Instead of grave or tombstone, which might stir up images of death, she uses a word that would consider a lighter version of dwelling or even home. A swelling of the ground gets rid of any possibility that we might think this is not a grave. This signifies a freshly dug hole in the ground. Line 19 through 20, the roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. These lines continue to explain the burial house. A cornice is the pointed part of the roof, and here it's in the ground. So if the highest part of the house is in the ground, then the rest of it must be too. This is more evidence that this is in fact a grave. It's unclear what parts of the house the speaker can see, but she seems to know what it is, and she's okay with it. Stanza 6, line 21 through 22. Since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day. The poem takes a major twist in line 21 by implying the speaker is telling a recent memory, but this all actually happened a really long time ago. This means the speaker has really been dead for centuries, not just a day. Feels shorter than the day is just another way of saying something like feels like just yesterday. So this memory remains vivid and alive for the speaker. Line 23 through 24, I first surmised their horses' heads were toward eternity. These final lines recall the very first time the speaker encountered the horse-drawn carriage and had a feeling they were more than just regular horses. They signified her journey to the afterlife. Ending on an image of the direction in which the horse's head were pointing almost signifies they're pointing towards something, in this case, eternity. Final stanza is full of surprising moments for the reader. We find out the speaker has actually been dead for many years versus just a day. The speaker is just simply a ghost clinging on tied to her memory of the day she died.